Ah, my friends, let's sit a while and talk. Not about the golden years they promised us, but about the little things. Those ugly, peculiar things we start doing as we age. Oh, don't look so surprised, you know exactly what I mean. The funny part is, everyone sees it, but no one dares to say a word. Ah, the sounds of old age. Once upon a time we moved through the world with ease, barely making a sound unless we wanted to. Now every movement is accompanied by a full symphony of grunts, sighs, groans, and unexpected cracks in the joints. Sitting down requires a deep exhale, and getting up demands an effort that comes with a noise of its own. It's not something we plan. It just happens. The body speaks for us, whether we like it or not. The knees in particular seem to have found their own language. Every step on the staircase, every bend to pick up something from the floor, they make themselves known. A little pop here, a loud crack there, as if they're announcing, yes, we're still here, but don't expect us to be quiet about it. Shoulders join in, adding creaks and stiffness to every reach. Even turning our heads comes with a strange little crunch, as if the neck needs to remind us that it too has been working all these years. Then there's the sighing. Oh, the sighing. When we sit down, when we stand up, when we finish a meal, or when we even think about starting something new, it's as if our bodies let out a little extra air just for the sake of it. And don't forget the unexpected noises, those little grumbles and throat clearings that appear from nowhere. Once upon a time, we might have held them back, but now they seem to slip out effortlessly, as natural as breathing. And let's not ignore the sounds of digestion. It seems the stomach has its own way of reminding us that we're no longer young. A meal doesn't just settle quietly anymore. No, it announces itself with gurgles and rumbles even long after we've eaten. And heaven help us if we try to eat too fast. That's an invitation for hiccups, burps, or even an unexpected sneeze if something goes down the wrong way. It's as if the body has a mind of its own now, doing what it pleases without warning. Sleeping is no escape from this symphony either. Once, we used to rest in peaceful silence. Now, there's snoring, there's wheezing, and sometimes even a little whistle through the nose. And turning over in bed, that's another production entirely. The mattress creaks, the body groans, and it takes a little extra effort just to find a comfortable position. Those beside us might pretend not to notice, but they do. The funny part is, no one ever says anything. People hear it, they notice, but they stay silent. Maybe out of politeness, maybe because they know their turn is coming. We may not be as quiet as we used to be, but if nothing else, we've certainly become more entertaining. Ah, the great mystery of life in old age. Where did I put that thing? It was just here a moment ago, wasn't it? This is a game we never signed up for, yet we play it every single day. Glasses disappear, only to be found resting on top of the head. Keys go missing, but somehow they've been in the same pocket all along. And then there's the truly baffling moment of walking into a room, standing there, looking around and realizing that the reason for entering has completely vanished from memory. It starts small, a misplaced pen, a forgotten word, a name that lingers just out of reach. It'll come to me, we say, and sometimes it does, 2 hours later when we no longer need it. But then it happens more often. The remote control plays a cruel game of hide and seek. The newspaper gets lost in plain sight, and letters meant to be mailed end up in the refrigerator. People around us notice, of course, but they don't say much. Maybe they smile knowingly. Maybe they gently try to help, but they don't point it out too directly. The real challenge is remembering why we started something in the first place. We begin telling a story only to pause halfway, struggling to remember where it was going. The mind plays tricks, leaving us stranded in the middle of a sentence, with no clear way forward. "What was I saying again?" becomes a regular phrase in conversation, and people kindly nod and wait, even if they already know we won't remember. And when they try to help by filling in the blanks, sometimes we get stubborn, because deep down we know we knew it. Then there's the case of searching for something we were already holding. Nothing makes a person feel quite as ridiculous as turning the house upside down looking for a phone that's been in hand the whole time. Or better yet, calling that very phone from another device, only to feel the vibration in a pocket. And when we do find what we're looking for, there's that moment of disbelief. How could we have missed it? How did it manage to disappear right before our eyes? And let's not even get started on names. Oh, the struggle of trying to recall the name of someone we've known for years. It hovers on the edge of memory, teasing us, refusing to come forward until we've completely given up. Instead, we resort to calling everyone dear, buddy, or simply pretending we didn't hear the question. And when the name does finally return, it's usually in the middle of the night or hours after the conversation has ended. It's a daily adventure, this game of forget and find. We don't always win, but we play it anyway, with a mix of frustration and humor. The best part? No matter how many times we lose, we wake up the next day ready to play again. Ah, the truth, the raw, unpolished, unfiltered truth. There was a time when we carefully considered our words, measuring them for politeness, holding back opinions that might offend. But something happens as the years pass. That little voice inside that once said, "Maybe don't say that," grows quieter, and the words just come out, unedited and unapologetic. The world calls it bluntness, we call it honesty. It starts small, a little slip here and there. We notice someone's gained weight, and before we can stop ourselves, we say, "You've been eating well, haven't you?" A new haircut catches our eye, and instead of politely saying, "Oh, you changed your hair," we blurt out, "What happened up there?" It's not meant to be cruel, it's just that we see no reason to pretend. After all, we've spent a lifetime dancing around the truth. Why bother now? People notice, of course. They blink in surprise, sometimes laugh nervously, and other times shift uncomfortably. But they never say much. Maybe they know we mean no harm, or maybe they just don't want to argue with someone who's been around long enough to have earned the right to speak their mind. And the funny thing is, half the time, they know we're right. They just weren't expecting to hear it out loud. Then there are the observations about life itself. When we were younger, we were expected to be diplomatic, to smooth over hard truths. Now, we say it as it is. That was a stupid decision. You're wasting your time with that nonsense. That relationship won't last. We see things clearly because we've seen it all before, and experience tells us that sugarcoating doesn't change reality. So why not say what we mean and mean what we say? And oh, the young ones, how they squirm when we give them advice they didn't ask for. They call it meddling, but we call it wisdom. We tell them to save their money instead of buying foolish things. We tell them to stop chasing shallow dreams and focus on what matters. We warn them about the mistakes we made, and when they roll their eyes, we just shake our heads, because one day they'll see we were right. Even strangers aren't spared from our honesty. The waiter who gives slow service gets a "What's taking so long?" The doctor who talks in circles gets a "Just tell me what's wrong." And when someone asks for our opinion, they better be ready for the real answer. Because we don't waste time with politeness anymore. Some might say we've lost our filter. But we know the truth. It's not lost, it's just no longer needed. We've spent too many years tiptoeing around words, worrying about regret. Because if we don't say it, who will? And besides, we've earned the right to say exactly what we think. Ah, the scent of old age. It's not something we notice ourselves, but believe me, everyone else does. There's a certain air that follows us around, a mix of time, memories, and a life well lived. Some call it the vintage smell, a polite way of saying that age carries its own aroma. They won't mention it, of course. They just smile kindly and maybe crack a window when we're not looking. It starts with the house. No matter how clean it is, how much we dust or mop, there's always that distinct scent that settles in, clinging to the walls, the furniture, even the curtains. Maybe it's the old books stacked in corners, their pages carrying the musty scent of history. Maybe it's the clothes, tucked away in closets for years, absorbing the air of time. Or maybe it's just that years of cooking, living, and existing in the same space create a fragrance all their own, one that no amount of air freshener can fully erase. Then there's the clothing. Once upon a time they smelt fresh, crisp, new. Now they carry the soft scent of age, a mixture of old fabric, gentle detergents, and a hint of nostalgia. Some might call it comforting, like the smell of a well-worn sweater or a favorite chair. Others, well, they simply notice. Maybe that's why younger folks are always giving us scented lotions and fresh colognes. A subtle hint, perhaps. Not that we mind. A little spritz of something floral or woody doesn't hurt, though, let's be honest, it never completely replaces the underlying scent of experience. And let's not forget our own skin. The youthful fragrance of sweat and sunshine fades, replaced by something gentler, something different. Maybe it's the lotions we use, the ointments for aching joints, the hint of medicated balms that stay with us long after we've applied them. Or maybe it's just that our skin, after decades of weathering life, carries a story, a scent that speaks of time itself. Of course, the younger ones would never mention it outright. They just open a door, light a candle, or offer a mint-scented handkerchief with a smile. We see it, we know it, but we pretend not to notice. After all, what's the harm? Let them do their little tricks. We've been around long enough to understand that some things in life can't be washed away, sprayed over, or hidden with perfume. Besides, that so-called vintage smell, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's the scent of wisdom, of years well spent, of memories stacked like old books on a wooden shelf. Let them notice, let them chuckle about it when we leave the room. One day they'll carry it too. And maybe, just maybe, they'll finally understand that some scents aren't meant to be erased. They're meant to be cherished. Ah, food. Once it was just a matter of eating to fill the stomach, of tasting what was before us without much thought. But as the years pass, food becomes something more. It becomes a ritual, a careful practice. We no longer eat just because we're hungry. We eat with intention, with care, and, often, with a great deal of discussion about digestion and comfort. The meals of old age aren't simply about satisfying cravings. They become delicate operations that require attention to detail. Take, for example, the texture of the food. What was once a joyous bite of a chewy steak or a crispy fried chicken is now carefully examined, with a new sensitivity in the mouth. Tough meats are avoided, as are anything too crunchy or difficult to chew. The mind begins to assess the meal before it's even on the plate. Can I chew that? Will it be too tough? The thought of a hard crust or a stubborn bone in the fish sends us into a mild panic. And when it's time to eat, there's no rushing. Meals are savored slowly, each bite carefully chewed, each flavor analyzed as if it's a puzzle waiting to be solved. The joy of eating comes not in how much we consume, but in how thoughtfully we consume it. The temperature of the food becomes another ritualistic consideration. Gone are the days of gobbling down a hot bowl of soup without a second thought. Now we hover over the bowl, feeling its warmth with our hands, ensuring it's not too hot to burn the mouth. A spoonful must be taken with care, checking for the perfect balance of warmth. Not too scalding, but comforting. Hot drinks are no longer guzzled down in one go. They are sipped slowly, with appreciation for each small, soothing taste. And what of timing? There was a time when we could eat whenever we felt like it, without much concern. But now meals are timed with precision. We eat at set hours, often because it helps regulate the body's rhythm. A comforting routine that signals to the body that it's time to settle down, to rest, and to enjoy. A late breakfast or an early dinner becomes a well-established part of the day, something we rely on as a small anchor amidst the changes of life. Food preferences change too. What we once craved, spicy dishes, rich desserts, heavy meals, are replaced with simpler, lighter fare. It's not that we don't enjoy the flavors, it's just that our bodies demand less now. Maybe it's a preference for something more easily digested, or a desire for the familiar, the comfort. We might have our favorite go-to meals, a bowl of soup, a small salad, or perhaps something as simple as a soft piece of bread with butter. These meals don't need to be fancy. They don't need to impress anyone. They just need to be right for us, easy on the stomach and comforting to the soul. And let's not forget the inevitable discussions that accompany the meals. Is this too much salt? Should I eat that much? Is this healthy? With every bite, the conversation seems to shift toward what's good for us, what's bad for us, what we should or shouldn't eat. It becomes a constant dialogue, one that reflects our growing awareness of our bodies and the needs they now have. There's a kind of pride in knowing exactly what works for us, even if it means politely declining that extra slice of cake or requesting less sugar in our coffee. Food in these later years becomes more than just nourishment. It's a ritual, a quiet moment in the day that we treat with reverence. Each meal is a small celebration of the body, a chance to slow down, savor, and appreciate the simple pleasures that we've come to rely on. The days of quick steps, of rushing from one place to another, have long passed. What was once a brisk walk to catch the bus or make it to a meeting has now transformed into a slow shuffle, a careful, deliberate movement that seems to speak of time itself. With every step, the body reminds us that it has been through a lot, and it's in no hurry anymore. It's no longer about reaching a destination quickly. It's about making it there with grace, taking the time to ensure each movement is done with intention. There is no more striding with confidence or speed. Now, every step is taken with caution. The knees, the hips, the ankles, they all play their part in this slow, methodical dance. When we step down, there's a slight hesitation, a moment of checking in with the body, ensuring everything is in place before the foot moves forward. We lift our feet more carefully, as though aware of the ground beneath us, feeling for every uneven surface, every stone or crack in the pavement. No longer do we take the ground beneath us for granted. Each step is a reminder that the body is no longer as sure-footed as it once was. The pace itself has slowed down, not out of choice, but out of necessity. It's as if the body has decided that there's no rush anymore. The days of racing through life are behind us, and now every movement is an invitation to enjoy the present moment, even if it means moving slower than before. What used to be a quick march to get things done has been replaced by a shuffle that is more thoughtful and reflective. There's no hurry to get to the next thing. Instead, we move as though we're savoring each second, taking our time as if each step holds some kind of quiet wisdom. When we shuffle, it's not just our legs that are moving slower, it's our whole body that feels the shift in pace. The shoulders, the back, the arms, they all move with a gentler rhythm, a slower tempo. It's not uncomfortable, but it's certainly different. The small steps may seem insignificant to others, but to us, they represent something far more meaningful. Each step is a reminder of how much we've lived, how far we've come. People notice, of course. There's a gentle sigh or a glance over the shoulder as the younger ones walk by, eager to get to their destinations with speed. They might not understand it, the shuffle, the slow movement, but they accept it because they know, deep down, they'll get there eventually too. And so, we shuffle, letting the world move faster around us, while we take our time, savoring the rhythm of our own journey. We no longer feel the need to keep up. We don't have to rush through life, checking off tasks with the same urgency as we once did. The slow shuffle becomes a symbol of contentment, of no longer being at the mercy of time. We move in our own way, at our own pace, and for the first time in years, there's no guilt, no pressure. It's just us and the world, moving together, but at different speeds. And that's okay. The stories never really end. They go on, winding through the years, finding their way into conversations, into moments of reflection. Every experience, every memory, every chapter of life carries a story. And when you've lived as long as we have, the stories begin to merge, overlap, and evolve. They grow more vivid, more elaborate, and they take on a life of their own. We tell them over and over again, not because we forget them, but because we can't help but relive them, to breathe life back into moments that have shaped who we are. When we speak, we don't just share events. We share the feelings, the lessons, the textures of life. It's a way of keeping those moments alive, of passing them on to those who come after us. But the funny thing is, we tell these stories not just to others, but to ourselves as well. We repeat them like rituals, as if each telling reaffirms something we don't want to forget, something we don't want to lose. Sometimes we mix them up, embellish a detail here or there, or tell them from a new perspective. But they always come from the same well of experiences we've gathered over the years. There's a comfort in these stories. They are the threads that weave through our lives, connecting the past to the present, tying together the things that matter most, the faces of friends long gone, the places we've traveled to, the moments of joy and sorrow. They all come back in a story, unfolding with each telling. And it's not always the big moments that matter most. Sometimes it's the smallest, the quietest stories that hold the greatest weight. A simple walk through a neighborhood, a fleeting conversation on a summer day, a shared laugh over a cup of coffee. These are the stories that carry a sense of belonging, of knowing that we've lived, really lived, through these small but precious exchanges. But the stories don't just live in our words. They linger in our minds, resurfacing at the oddest times. A song on the radio, the smell of a flower, the sound of laughter. They bring us back to places and people we haven't thought of in years. And suddenly, we're there again, in the midst of that moment, as though no time has passed at all. Those memories come flooding back, often unbidden, but always welcome, like an old friend knocking at the door. Of course, not everyone is interested in hearing the same stories time and time again. Some might listen politely, nodding, maybe even chuckling at the well-worn punchlines. But there are always those who listen more closely, who hang on to every word because they understand. They know that these stories are more than just tales. They are the map of our lives, the places where we've been, the roads we've traveled, and the wisdom we've gained along the way. And as we grow older, the stories become richer, not because the events are necessarily grander, but because we've had more time to reflect on them, to understand their deeper meaning. The small details, once insignificant, now carry more weight. We understand the choices we made and why they mattered, the people we met and how they shaped us, the paths we took and the ones we didn't. In sharing these endless stories, we pass on a legacy, not just of events, but of understanding, of insight, of the truths we've learned along the way.